Beautiful Friday. Ooh, I'm probably going to end up cutting that. I'm going to hear that back and be like, wow, this is why I did not do a singing career.
Well, welcome back. Here we are. I wouldn't say that we're like frazzled today, but we've had a lot of hats on today, more than normal.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, we just got off a riveting phone call with an accountant.
And
Which was great.
it was great.
She was great.
She's great. We loved her. We struggle with not knowing things sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And taxes and things like that are just things that, you know, we don't know.
No.
We don't know.
And listen, like, if you do work with taxes, power to ya.
Yeah. Like, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Genuinely, just could not.
No.
That's the weird part, is because I love things that are very meticulous.
It's very black and white.
Very black and white.
Organized.
Like, yes, love those things. But when it comes to taxes, I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, like, what was it? I was talking to my sister-in-law, Anna, about it. And she was saying how, like, satisfying it is when everything, like, lines up and makes sense. Yeah. And I get that. But just getting there, I'm like, man, I'd rather, like, make sense of organizing, like, my clothing instead of data. Or I'd, like, redo my kitchen and take all the dishes out and put it back.
Like, give me a spice cabinet.
Yeah.
And that I will just have a ball with.
Well, it's like the anxiety bookshelf that I have.
Yep.
It's color-coded right now. But
yeah.
Welcome back to Couch Combos.
Yes, welcome back. And today, it actually goes perfectly. We had to take a solid, like, 20 minutes to just be like, okay, before we have a podcast about regulating our nervous systems, we should probably regulate our nervous systems.
Yep.
So Sarah bought a dress.
I did.
And I watched her buy one.
And you sat. And you've internally vibrated a little bit.
Don't tell me to meditate. I'm overstimulated.
Honestly, this is one of my favorite topics because it just comes up in my life and in my clients' lives.
Yeah.
So
all
much.
the time. All the time.
So, okay, for you, what's the worst advice you've ever gotten when you are just super overwhelmed and overstimulated?
I'm just the basic of, like, do not tell me to calm down. Like, don't tell me to calm. Just like, okay, just calm down just a little bit. I'll be like, don't tell me to stay calm. Or that, well, it's really not that big of a deal.
Oh, man. No.
It's
no.
not that serious.
Oh
Or it's like, whoa, okay, yeah.
Like, you know what? You might look back at it and be like, it's sure you're not wrong. But in the moment when you are just dysregulated, overwhelmed, you do not know. My least favorite is when someone says, hey, take a deep breath. No.
Let's just breathe.
Yeah. Like, that's something you tell someone when they're in a regulated state.
Right.
At least for me. That's the worst advice I've always gotten is like, just take a deep breath and chill.
I will say a sneaky way of getting someone to take a deep breath without telling them to take a deep breath is we would do this all the time at school. I don't know why my arms are crossed. Just feeling very...
It's fine. We've had a lot of, like, stimuli today.
Weird. Yeah. I was closing myself off for a second there. Is when we were at the school and a kid would just be like, off the walls.
Sure.
And we didn't want to say, okay, let's just take some deep breaths. But it is helpful. Sure. But, like, they're not ready for that. We would say, hey, let's go get some water.
I love that.
Let's get a cup of water real quick. Can you drink this water for me?
Yeah.
And it forces them to breathe and take a second because you can't do anything other than drink water.
Yeah.
So there's a sneaky way of if you don't want to tell someone to take a deep breath, be like, hey, would you like some water?
My, like, really unhinged version is, do you smell that? Like,
do you smell that?
Sometimes I'll be like, ooh, that's funky. Do you smell that? Or I'll be like, oh, something smells good. Do you smell it? It's really bad, and it's a little bit, like, deceptive, but especially if you're talking about a child.
Yeah.
Again, like, you can't tell a kid, like, just chill when they're having a tantrum. Instead, it's like, there's something good in the oven.
Or feel your body. What are you feeling in your body? As a child. Now as an adult,
Sure.
But anywho, so that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, it's don't tell me to meditate. I'm overstimulated.
That's right. So, okay, when we talk about this, we're talking about our nervous system regulation.
Yes.
Which we talk about a lot. And it's a huge buzzword right now all over the social medias. Is like, your nervous system.
The vagus nerve,
all the things. So, we're going to dive into what that actually means.
Yep.
But clinically,
Yeah.
and in layman's terms, what is nervous system regulation or dysregulation?
So I feel like clinically, when you're dysregulated, you just have an excessive amount of stimuli to the point where nothing will fire.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, layman's terms, it's just there's too many cooks in the kitchen in your brain. That's how I always phrase it in my own life. But then on the other side of, like, nervous system regulation, it is when you are receiving input, you're receiving stimulus, and you're able to respond accordingly. Yeah. And it just makes sense. It's a very free-flowing process.
Free-flowing process.
Say that 5 times fast. With a big cold brew in your hand. And it's this idea of, like, I always kind of equate it to, like, a kitchen staff. And the line cooks are all in perfect sync and they're in harmony. That's what a regulated nervous system is like. There's all different cogs in the system and in the machine, but it all kind of flows seamlessly. Yeah. What do you think?
So layman's terms, I like to think of all of my alarms are going off at the same exact time, but there's not actually like a fire. So it's just everything's just like me, like, or when you look at like a gas pedal in a car, it's that the gas pedal is totally pushed down and you can't take your foot off of the gas. So you're just running fast. But then also, and a lot of people don't recognize this, is that nervous system dysregulation is not always an up. But also like a not being able to do it. Like a shutdown. So like your foot is stuck on the brake of you feeling like, okay, I can't get up, I can't make myself have these thoughts, I can't move action towards something, of essentially just like our body is shutting down.
Well, and honestly, when I hear those things, I think of our office sometimes. And the people that are listening, if you are a client, like, hey, but if you're not, so we have sound machines in our office, just like every other therapy space. We have 2 different sound machines and they're not connected to each other. Listen, that is a later goal. If right now it works, it's fine.
Right.
But because we have 2 separate sound machines, this is the same sound. It's just like not playing in sync. But they're battery operated. And so when it's running out of juice, like it'll skip a little bit. And I can't even tell you the amount of times you've watched me do this, but I will open my therapy room door and immediately turn off the sound machines, because sometimes when I'm hearing one or both of them skipping and they're not in sync, and then I'm trying to have a conversation, whether it's like with Caroline or another client, my brain physically cannot hear things that are going on. So it's that same thing as I get so overstimulated and dysregulated. The stimuli from someone's voice, the skipping, the multiple sources of audio, I literally can't hear anything. And that's when I have to be like, 1 second, and I just immediately have to turn it off. That's what I think about.
Or like when you first start driving and you're trying to drive and you turn the music down. You put like sunglasses on because it's really bright, and you have 2 hands on the wheel and you're just staring at the road. It's like I can't think about multiple things at once. I can't have a conversation, listen to the radio, have the sun in my eyeballs, and drive.
It's like when it's raining really heavy and people have to turn the music down.
Exactly.
The music has nothing to do with the rain.
No, it does not.
I'm the same way. I'm like, oop, I need to get off the phone. I need to like turn my audiobook off, my music. I have for me, it's very like much. I get very overstimulated at like the auditory level. If there's too many sources of audio, I like short circuit. I can't function.
So like there's different sections of our nervous system. So like our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight, which is our fear responses, and then our parasympathetic, which is our rest and digest. I love that we rhyme things in counseling, which is essentially when we are regulated. And when we're dysregulated, it's like those 2 things are working against each other. That they're not taking the turn that they need.
Well, and like something that I love to bring up when we talk about like overstimulation, regulation, is polyvagal theory. And I will say that polyvagal theories of counseling and mental health are really debated in the field. And there are a lot of people who don't like it, who have very strong opinions. So again, like take everything with a grain of salt, do your own research and things like that. But what I do love is polyvagal theory is separated into different categories. One of them being like your sympathetic response, like you just said, it's that like fight or flight. Then there's your dorsal vagal response, which is your freeze or shut down. And then your ventral vagal, which is that like neutral, safe, connected space. I always like to say that's like our happy medium and our middle ground. And it just kind of goes into how your nervous system operates and reacts to certain things and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And with all of those, you're needing different things in that moment.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think the most important thing to remember about through this entire podcast is that when we are dysregulated, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with us.
No, not at all.
It's not like we are not functioning, we are miswiring, or it's like a negative thing. It's not good or bad, just is. But it's more just like your body is literally trying to protect you from something, or just inform you on something of, hey, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel okay. What's going on here? And that can be in the moment. That could also be past trauma and experiences from then that's stored in your body. The Body Keeps a Score. Great book if you want to go check it out.
Yep. It can be obviously past trauma. It can be neurodivergence, chronic illness.
Yep.
Also be some capitalism starting to come in.
Capitalism.
And I feel like some people might be like, how is capitalism dysregulating? Well, our society thrives on a deficiency model of things, of saying like you're not enough. And it always encourages you to have more and do more. And again, too much stimuli can lead to dysregulation. So it kind of feeds that beast a lot of the time.
Totes.
But for a nice little stat, a 2020 study published in A 2020 study published in Frontiers in Psychology found that trauma survivors have significantly lower vagal tone, meaning their baseline for regulation is lower and it takes more effort to return to calm, and regulation isn't easy for everyone. I actually loved this stat because I actually don't think I talk about this at all. I have a hyperactive vagus nerve. I've always had it. It's attached to something called POTS, and it's genuinely impacts regulation very significantly. And I love having statistics like this because I think it just lands the fact that regulating is so individualized, like you said. It is a very personal experience. And we'll definitely get into it in a little bit too. But this idea that people will not look the same as you when they're dysregulated or regulated.
Yeah. And I think that's, I'm going to just like toot our own horn a little bit, but I think that's why I just love the work that we do specifically is we say at the forefront of working with anyone and even with like talking to other counselors and people in the areas that we take an individualistic, that's hard, God, words are really hard today.
I think it's because we were a little frizzle-frazzled earlier.
So we didn't take enough time to regulate before we started.
It's okay, we can call attention to it.
Yeah, that's right. We're bringing it to the table.
We don't have to pass judgment.
Exactly. It just is. We're going to be neutral about it, but
as best as we can.
But that we do take therapy is very much what is going to be best for the person sitting in front of us. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of times people do not recognize or call it to action of like, things are going to be different for one person versus another person. Even the way that I regulate is going to be very different than the way that you regulate, as well as one client that I have at 9 and then another one that I have at 10. And so recognizing the basic tools that we see on Instagram, and, you know, we put them on ours too.
Sure.
And they work for people, right?
It's a blanket statement.
Yes. Of like, hey, these can be extremely helpful. They're not always going to be helpful for us, and that's okay. There is nothing wrong with us if we try to meditate and it feels uncomfortable and it doesn't feel like it's helping. It doesn't feel like it's working. And now this with the caveat of like, you can't do it for like one time for 30 seconds and be like, okay, I'm changed. But
I think that brings up like, okay, there is a inherent problem with like the prescriptive wellness advice sometimes and the go-tos. So why is it that sometimes some people will take those like blanket statement pieces of advice and it actually makes them feel worse?
So first and foremost, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, especially ones where it's like, okay, we're going to sit and meditate and we're going to check in with our body. If our body's dysregulated, it doesn't feel good right now.
Right.
And sometimes we can be sitting there taking in what's going on in our body and like, this doesn't feel good. I feel uncomfortable. Then we get in our head of panic of, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then we feel like we're even more dysregulated than when we started.
Yeah.
But also there's the aspect of like trauma. And sitting with our body when it doesn't feel well, or maybe we don't trust our body. Our body doesn't feel good in the moment. And so it's almost this idea of, okay, I don't really want to be this connected to my body because it makes me uncomfortable.
Well, at the same time, like being regulated is just a bunch of different kinds of ways to make our body, mind, spirit safe and feel safe. And it kind of makes me think about when I imagine, I'm trying to think about someone that's very different from myself. my spouse. If I were to think about the things that would make him feel safe, it's probably somewhere like Jackson Hole, out in the middle of nowhere, looking at the mountains in nature. That would make him very regulated. If you plot me in that setting, I am probably thinking about how
the bugs.
I am the bugs, and then how I am going to be on like Dateline or 2020 because this is where the axe murderer pops out, and offs me. And so again, like the go-to prescriptive advice, it's hard, and I understand, and like you said, like we've posted a lot of it before. But it's a starting point because everyone's idea of safety or perceived safety will be so different and attached to so many other memories and potential traumas too.
Right. And with that, I feel like judgment too. I know when I think about, because journaling, that was one that when I was in my own therapy, she said like, hey, let's journal about it, do all these things. And I knew that journaling just does not work for me. I just don't like it. But I tried it. And I did it, and I was thinking, okay, if a therapist is telling me to journal and I'm trying to journal and it's not working, like what's wrong with me? Like, am I so far gone that these things don't work? And so that makes it uncomfortable too, of feeling like, okay, judgment behind these things not quote unquote working for us or helping us, when in reality just might not be your thing.
Absolutely. Well, even things like yoga, not my thing at all. But the ways that I regulate might like amp up people too much, or it might just be like odd or different. And that's okay, because I think that some of these like go-to pieces of advice, again, they add more stimulus to our brain.
Right.
And sometimes adding more will help bring people down, but for others, it just amps them up even more.
Right. So being overstimulated does not just mean that we're stressed.
Yeah, it's not just like I'm frantic. It's very, very different.
Yeah, it's genuinely taking over your entire body. And sometimes it's not even based on what's happening right now. No. It could just be where you are in the moment.
Yeah, and it can look like you said, a freeze response, like almost like a deer in the headlight response. It could even sometimes look like fainting. I know for me, when I've gotten super dysregulated or overstimulated, I'll hit the deck and I'll faint.
The fainting goat.
Yes, that's me. There's actually a fainting goat vineyard up in North Georgia.
So cute. We should go.
I would love to go at some point. Maybe in the fall when it's not as hot.
Right.
But
we'll actually be fainting with the heat. You'll be fainting from stress. I'll be fainting from heat.
Great vibe. So yes, it's like the deer in the headlight. Sometimes it's fainting. For other people, they get highly reactive. So there's like the sudden bouts of tearfulness, sometimes anger. What are some other tells of just overstimulation? Sometimes it's like a physical, like sweating.
Yeah, sweating, heartbeat, heavy breath, of like either breathing super fast or just breathing like super deep.
Brain fog.
Chest breathing instead of belly breathing. Brain fog.
Ooh, chest breathing instead of, that's a good one.
The leg.
Yeah, the tippy
tapping.
Leg.
Yeah, the tippy tappies or the fidgeting. So all of those.
Absolutely.
So like in therapy, if a client is sitting in front of us, what would this look like real world?
So I do think that sometimes there's a lot of guilt and shame for clients that comes up, like you said, is when we are kind of debriefing a moment where they tried a coping skill and it didn't work. But at the same time, that's kind of our bread and butter. Right. Like we said, is our practice is very custom, and like we're proud of that. But that does mean that there's a lot of trial and error, which can come with guilt or shame sometimes. And so sometimes it's a client saying like, I was really overwhelmed, I got really overstimulated, and I tried this breathing exercise that we talked about or practiced, and it made it worse. And I think that's when things can get really tough. Yeah. Things like that.
Yeah, definitely. And this idea of like, we're trying to sit, we're being mindful in session, and they just can't do it. They're just like, there's way too many things going on in my head. I'm telling myself all of these things, and it's like, hey, that's okay.
Right, and that could happen because maybe like the sound of our AC kicked in, and it just like itched their brain, or there are people like cutting the landscaping outside, or it was hot, or they're thinking about what they have to go do after session. There's a text that they need to respond to, whatever that means. Sometimes it can just seem as this like mental block or physical block even between them and regulation, which I also feel like our physical maintenance is really important when we talk about this. Totally. Because sometimes it's like, no, I'm quote unquote doing everything right in therapy, but I can't regulate. And sometimes the first question I ask is like, have you eaten today? Do you need any water? I say that as I'm holding a giant coffee. I have had water and breakfast, but sometimes like our physical maintenance can stand in the way of regulating
our plant needs.
Yes, exactly.
Of rest, food, and water, and sunlight.
Precisely.
And movement. Okay. Another research insight. Stat drop. A 2017 study in psychological trauma reported that nearly 25% of trauma survivors experienced worsening symptoms during silent meditation practices. Trauma-informed care requires flexibility, not rigidity.
That just like makes me sad.
Right? And to think that they're probably sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I'm too far gone.
There's something wrong.
There's something wrong.
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of those people are probably the clients who haven't tried therapy because they have those thoughts of like, I don't fit this mold. But the thing is, like, that's also the fault of our field. And I do feel like at some degree, like, we have to own that of there has been in the past in the field of psychology a very prescriptive way of coping with things when there was like one theory to operate from. And I think that that's ingrained pretty heavily. And there aren't a lot of providers who are more like custom in that way. And it just hurts people at the end of the day because they don't fit this like cookie cutter mold that doesn't really exist for anybody anymore.
I will say that's something that I loved that UGA taught us was that we can be eclectic therapists. You don't have to have one theory and that's all that you do. If anything, they said like, don't do that because it's not going to work for everyone.
I love that.
And like you need to make sure that you're showing up in the space with what that client needs.
So obviously if we're thinking about what like dysregulation, overstimulation looks like, how it really gets there, I think there's this idea of, okay, we see a bunch of these issues that don't help. What actually does help?
So I know for me, and I might get some hate for this comment, but I'll allow it. When I'm talking about somatic therapy, I know that if I were to go into a therapy setting and my therapist looked at me and was like, I want you to do some vocal toning by doing voos, I would look at them and I'd be like, what are you talking about? Because I didn't know about it until I got into the field. I feel like that's very new and upcoming. That has a lot of research and science behind it. Yes. So our vagus nerve, which is a part of our nervous system, sometimes when it is dysregulated, being able to do a vocal toning, which is essentially this vibration in our body that can regulate the vagus nerve. And what that is you sit and you go voo all the way until you can't voo anymore.
You run out of breath, essentially.
And then you hold that, and then you take a big, deep breath in.
Love it.
And that's helping to regulate the vagus nerve. So when I'll tell like clients, okay, we're going to do this, but I'll say, it's going to seem very woo-woo.
Silly, yeah.
Yeah, I said, but it works amazingly. Yeah. And we'll do it, and afterwards they'll be like, oh, wow, yeah, I did not think that was going to work, but that helped. So vooing is one for me. So vocal toning.
I love that.
Music, art, of if you feel like you can't just sit with yourself, of instead taking a more like active approach of, okay, I'm building something, I'm creating something with that. And then I think my last one and probably my favorite one, and this one I use a lot with kids, is I'll have them pick a color and I'll have them find that color like in the room of like find everything that's green in this room. You can't think about anything else. They feel like they have like a task and it's helping to ground them without actually just sitting in silence, which could be really uncomfortable, especially for a kid.
I've done something similar where I'm like, hey, like what's your dog's name? And for every letter of the dog's name, we're like, okay, if Hank, what's something in the room that like starts with the letter H? And we kind of go down the word, and it's really nice. And again, like it just takes you out of that. When I think of like my favorite regulation skills that don't involve like pretending to be calm, I love tip skills. It's a DBT concept. And again, I really do think that this episode specifically really highlights how eclectic we both are as clinicians and how we're constantly pulling from a million different theories, which I personally love. And I think it keeps us fresh too. Yeah. So I love DBT. It's a very, again, slightly criticized piece of therapy. I think I talked about it in one of our earlier episodes as CBT's like edgy cousin.
Yes.
But I love tip skills. It's TIPP. And the first letter is for temperature, and it talks about how like intense heat or cold can help basically like shock our nervous system back into resting. It's also when you see things like sour candy, which like we keep here.
Go high choose.
Yeah, we've got like the sour candy. Sometimes like extreme spice can do that. I know like Fruit Riot is a beautiful skill, but because of tip skills. Have you heard of Fruit Riot?
No.
Oh my, I think you'd actually love them. They're frozen grapes or frozen fruit dipped in like citric acid and like.
Oh, are they the crunchy things?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
They're in like the freezer section. So it combines like the super cold and super sour.
Yeah.
It is an incredible regulation tactic, according to Tip Skills with DBT. The I is intense exercise, which is my preferred way of regulating, which again, everyone's different. For some people, if they're dysregulated, they're not going to think, let me go for a run. But for me, it works beautifully.
Right.
Because the science behind this is when you're having a somatic reaction to stress or overstimulation, for example, it might bring your heart rate up to 140 beats per minute and you're sitting down or you're just kind of existing. That's very jarring for our bodies, especially if we don't know how we got there. But if we do some kind of exercise that meets that, so okay, if this trigger gets us to 140 beats per minute, I know I can also get there with jumping jacks, and we meet that essentially with intense exercise, it's easier for us to come down from it. I love this skill. It's one of my favorites by far. And then the first P in Tip Skills is paced breathing. So again, it's like the inhale, hold, and exhale.
Yep.
Not my favorite for myself, but I know that a lot of people love it.
Yeah, because for me, that helps me immensely.
Like there's a reason why it's really recommended.
Yeah.
And then the last P, which we both love, is for PMR.
Woo!
So progressive muscle relaxation. It's essentially when you take specific muscle groups in your body and you tense and release them and you hold it until fatigue. And again, it just kind of like resets your nervous system a little bit. I love Tip Skills for nervous system regulation. It's my favorite.
It's perfect. And I think all of these definitely highlight the idea that we're not trying to control our bodies, but instead connecting with our bodies.
Yeah.
Of checking in where we are right now and saying, okay, how can I help myself in this moment?
Yeah, exactly.
Of not putting a judgment on it of, okay, I need to be calm, I need to be regulated, but instead of, okay, we're going to take this step by step. I've noticed that this is happening. Let's just take one step forward of trying one thing that I know is going to be, helpful for me in the moment.
I mean, it's cliche, but the whole like meet you where you're at really does apply when it comes to regulating. Because if you're sitting there and you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Almost sometimes like the shame and sometimes, unfortunately, the denial gets in the way of the regulation piece. And so finding that ideal way of coming back down starts with acknowledging, with openness where you're at.
And so when we think about regulation, there's two types, right? There's intrinsic, which is we're doing it on our own. We're regulating by ourselves, which that would be like grounding, meditating, art, working out, all the things that we've kind of talked about earlier. And there's a ton more, you guys. Pinterest if you need something. And then there's also co-regulating, which if you have kids, they're going to need this.
It's like magic.
Yes.
I love co-regulating.
Of you are that's a bad term. You are getting help from an outside source, which that could be like a pet, that could be a person, that could be this podcast.
Good.
Like it is essentially saying, okay, I can't do this on my own right now. I need some help. So I'm going to look to my friend to like talk with them, or we're going to go for a walk or a hug, or they're going to give me that glass of water or tell me that something stanky is in the room to see if they can smell it. And this is a big one, if you do have children or you work with children, is they don't always have the capacity to regulate on their own. Actually, most of the times, probably not.
There's like the verbal skills aren't there yet.
Yes.
Nothing like that.
So they're going to need a little aid, little help.
Yes. And what that looks like is I actually think about my dogs with co-regulating. That's the biggest example that I like to give is I have two dogs. One is a very high energy puppy. He's barely a year old. The other one is a not as high energy 7-year-old. They love each other, but at the same time, my puppy gets he's just hype. Like there's always a party going on. So he's really high energy, but once in a while it's too much for him and he gets really just geeked up, and you can just tell. And what he'll do is when my older dog Mia is like sleeping, he'll curl up near her. And you can tell like he's co-regulating with her heartbeat and her breathing. And that helps bring him down, just like with young children who love contact naps on a parent or a trusted adult, is they can sense your nervous system regulating, and that helps theirs regulate too. It's all those mirror neurons are working. It's so sweet.
It is so sweet. I think, Penny does the same thing. She's just continuously anxious and dysregulated. So she'll find the smallest spot to curl herself up into because it's that contact.
It's it's like dogs that also like sleep on us.
Right.
And so like, oh, first of all, my human, but also please help me relax.
Yes. And if anyone says that dogs don't have feelings,
they really do.
They totally do. And that's why we have service animals as well.
Yes.
So just throwing that out there. But it's the idea that regulation isn't just chilling out.
Yeah, no.
It's not just like, okay, you need to take a chill pill, you need to calm down, take some deep breaths and just vibe.
No.
It's like if you can get there with just like some deep breaths and you're like, okay, cool,
good
then
job.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well done. But instead,
this idea that like regulation makes your body feel like yours again.
Right. Yeah. And I love this on here. It says it's restoring enough capacity to respond rather than react.
Yes. Well, because I even think about times where like I've been overstimulated. Again, it's usually with like an auditory something, and the way I respond to something comes across as like snippy. But it's in those moments where I can't access, or I'm not able to access, like the tone parts of my voice or things like that. It's truly, I actually do it with my spouse very often, is because he doesn't care about sound. He's fine. Like the TV can be on, he's playing music, and then there's a podcast going at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a lot for me to walk into, but he'll notice, and I'll have to say, like, I need a second, because then he'll start talking to me. Like, I need a minute, cut 2 pieces of sound, please.
Right.
But I'm sure the delivery isn't warm and fluffy.
Yeah.
It's probably rather rude sometimes. But again, being regulated is about acknowledging where you are, meeting yourself there, and bringing it back down so that you don't feel like you're short-circuiting all the time.
Yeah. That also brings up a great idea of like when you're in a conversation with someone, whether it's spouse, friend, family, whoever it is, and you start to feel yourself get heightened.
Yeah.
It is not disrespectful to say, hey, I need to step away for like a couple of minutes and come back.
Yeah.
When I feel like the lid in my brain is
Sure.
back down and I'm not operating solely off of emotion.
When it's like, how many times have we been talking and I say, hold on a second, and I have to run out and I turn off the sound machine. So I'm like, okay, go ahead. Like, it's not rude, especially if also these people know. Like, it's not just disrespectful. It's you're actually wanting to give them the time. And I think that, again, you have to accept it within yourself first to be able to communicate with others.
Right. Love that.
So if we're thinking about statistics about these things, so the creator of polyvagal theory emphasizes that co-regulation is the primary biological strategy for safety, and we aren't meant to regulate alone, which I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Again, polyvagal is a very hot topic, but I did love this idea of humans are like biologically created to connect.
Yeah.
And the way that we can regulate, you don't have to go through it by yourself. Like, I know we talked about a ton of different things to try that are alone or solo, but you don't have to. And it's okay to connect with somebody and reach out. Even if it's just like, can I have a 60-second hug where like you can feel someone's heartbeat and you can just acknowledge their breathing rate.
Yeah. Community, guys. It's important.
Yes. And
Very
I do
important.
think that your physical space can also be very regulatory for you. And this is just like my own shameless plug. I work with a group that's called Trauma Informed Design, and these things aren't talked about, and it's relatively new into the field, but it talks about how our physical space and our environment is inherently regulating or dysregulating. And I think it's really neat because I don't think folks think about their environment in that way. And I didn't until my sister-in-law Adrienne introduced me to this group. But it was just cool because seeing case studies where they like redid a dental office where when you're reclined, they eliminated all harsh corners because a lot of folks felt like the harsh corners were threatening, which it makes sense. When I think about a dental office, it stresses me out. And so the idea of like soft edges just like seems a lot like, okay.
I love that. And I love that work because a lot of these things we're sitting here and we're like, well, I don't notice the soft edges. I don't notice this. It's like, exactly. We don't notice it, but we're having feelings about these things and not really understanding like why. Like even for a dental office, the sounds.
Yes. Oh,
the
smells.
The smells
Whoa.
and all the things. Like to all my dentists out there, we love you and thank you for doing your job.
Incredible.
But, you know, like there's these things and you don't always feel the best when you're going to a doctor's office and you're kind of just like, okay, is it what's happening there? Or is it more the experience in the environment? And it's just, there's constantly things unconsciously, subconsciously going on that are causing us to have these feelings.
Even down to like lighting, textures, colors, wayfinding, things like that. Like I remember like when we moved into our house, all of the lights in our house were this like bright white.
Yeah.
And it felt sterile. It felt like I was in a doctor's office. And that was one of the first things we did. Also because I couldn't tell what paint color I chose because the lighting was off.
Yeah.
I changed all of the lights from bright white to just like this neutral. And even in this space too, like it's not bright, it's warm.
Yeah, we never use the overhead lighting.
No.
Like
again, because it's not regulating.
Right.
Just things like that. Even like this wallpaper, there aren't harsh edges. They're all like very organic looking. It kind of just gives you things to wander at without having to fixate, which feels pretty good.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that. So I think that helps with this idea of, okay, if we realize why this is important, what can help, building this like regulation toolkit is something that everybody can really do to kind of just keep in their back pocket and just use whenever they're feeling that like, ooh, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah. So how do we build that toolkit? What does that look like if we're not, which I love Pinterest and I will shamelessly always use it for everything in my life. But if we're not a Pinterest girly and lavender baths, bubble baths, like I do this every single time. Guasha thingy on your face is not regulating, doesn't feel good for you. How do we figure that out?
I always start with the senses. And I always say like, okay, if you're going to gather this like regulation toolkit, go down all of your 5 senses and think about, and first of all, be for real with yourself.
Yeah.
It's not just like what you like. It's what actually helps you come back down. Go down all of your senses and think about what would soothe that sense in a time where you're feeling activated.
Yeah.
So I know like for some people, it's like feeling like a velvety something, or listening to ocean sounds, rain sounds, smelling something like lavender, or eucalyptus, tasting like you talked about, like sour or minty, whatever. I think that's a great starting point for a lot of folks.
Yeah. I definitely think the trial and error is important of realizing the first thing that you do and that you work with and that you try, it's not always going to work. If it does, phenomenal. Yeah. If it doesn't, that is okay. And like thinking back on what's helped before. Yeah. I know for me, I like to think of, okay, when was a time where I was extremely dysregulated? And I think about tennis court. And then I'm like, okay, what helped me during those times that I was able to regulate? And so I'll kind of like try and think on past experiences, because maybe I wasn't paying attention to what was actually helping. My body was just telling me, you need this, and it was following through with that.
Absolutely. And also reminding yourself that when you are on different states, you will need something different to regulate. So like thinking about like the polyvagal systems, when you're in that like sympathetic stage of fight or flight, you'll need one thing. When you're in your dorsal vagal, you'll need another. Then when you're in your ventral vagal, you'll need something else. So is it overwhelming to think about at face value? Absolutely. And we can definitely acknowledge that, especially at the beginning when you are doing this trial and error. But also remind yourself that it's okay if you don't have it all figured out at the beginning or in general. And you're worth kind of trialing these things to see what helps, and maybe even like asking friends what's helpful for them if you know that they're similar vibing to you.
Yeah. And I think an important thing to mention too is that we can be proactive with our nervous system regulation. It does not have to always be just in the moment. Like I know for me, if I'm getting ready to go talk to a bunch of people or do a presentation, one, I need a beta blocker, but two,
that was actually what I was thinking about.
Those things saved me at grad school. But two, of like, I already know that those for me are going to be times where I'm going to become very dysregulated. I can go ahead and set myself up of saying, okay, I'm going to proactively, I'm going to sit in my car and I'm going to listen to this podcast that just calms me. Or I'm going to, do my deep breathing. I'm going to use my 5 senses. I'm going to go ahead and have, like, for me, I usually always have a hairband.
Yeah, you fidget?
I do. I fidget. I like flick myself with a hairband, or I'll wrap it around my fingers. Of like, this doesn't have to be in the moment. And also doing those 60-second like check-in, micro practices, a body scan, you guys. If you don't want to just sit and like scan your body,
it's so great.
But at least like when you wake up in the morning, okay, what am I feeling in my body? Okay, cool. I know that that's where my points are today. And we can use that to start off fresh, or we can just check in randomly throughout the day. Okay, I'm feeling changes occurring. Does that mean I need to take a moment? Those kinds of things.
Absolutely. And just know your warning signs and just be aware. And again, just without judgment, but just kind of use it to seek out whatever you need in those moments too.
Yeah. So reflecting upon on our podcast today, and thanks for sticking with us, you guys. I feel like as time has gone and as we've been talking about these things, both of us have found our words.
We've been more regulated.
Yes. So if you're listening and you want to like reflect on kind of what we've talked about, maybe asking yourself, okay, what's one thing that actually helps me come back to myself when everything feels like too much?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. And maybe like make a top 3 toolkit little guy. I keep everything in my notes.
Yeah.
Literally everything.
I'm sure you do.
You should see my notes pad. She's wild.
I mean, you just saw part of my notes a minute ago, and it was very disjointed. But also kind of remind yourself that when we are dysregulated, we're not broken. And unfortunately, this is a part of life for a lot of folks. The way that we are dysregulated and the frequency and things like that is different for every person. But just know that you're not alone in feeling the frustrations or the after effects or the during of being dysregulated or overstimulated. You're not broken. You're human, unfortunately.
Yeah. Human moments.
Yes.
We all have them. But yeah, so thanks for joining us, guys. Another episode of Couch Convos on the pod, in the book. I think this is what, like 17?
Whoa. That's really fun.
Wow. And we haven't had technical difficulties, knock on wood, in ages.
I know. We're
so that's been
it out.
Great.
I love that.
But if you want to work with us, you can always visit www.soulhavengeorgia.com. Check out our Instagram, our TikTok, our Facebook, our iTunes, our Spotify, our YouTube, and they're all Soul Haven counseling.
Yes, and Couch Convos is not a substitute for therapy. It is just 2 therapists having some chats about it. And if you do feel like you are in danger or you're in crisis, please dial 988, 911, go to your closest emergency room or crisis center and get the help you deserve.
Yeah, and if you like this, like and subscribe. We would love that.
Like, subscribe,
leave us a comment.
Whatever.
Yeah. And until next time, see you guys.